In 1977, Patricia received an answer to a problem that she'd been dealing with her entire life, and that was that she was transgendered. She had known from the age of 2.5 or 3 that she was not a girl, she was a boy. Pat had looked for the answer to that for years, and in 1977 actually found that it was possible to transition from female to male. I am Pat Thomas. I had always, from my earliest memories, only felt that I was male. My first memories are of trying to explain to my parents that they, when they referred to me as their daughter or their, a girl, was that I was not a girl. I actually, until the age of 6, thought that my sex would actually change as I got older. That was something that happened at a later date. When I was 6, my brother was born, and then I realized that wasn't the case. I absolutely hated dresses. I hated getting dressed up. I didn't want to go out to dinner because that meant I had to put a dress on. It just made everything so uncomfortable. From my earliest memories, when we moved and all the neighborhood kids were out in the street playing ball, whether it be football or baseball, and the boys would always have their shirts off, and I never understood why I was always told I could not take my shirt off, why I had to have my shirt on. It was more the fact that girls don't do that. And I would just look at them and just go, but I'm not a girl. And I was basically told at the age of 3, don't ever bring this up again. And that's where things sat. My parents expected me to behave like a typical female, which I wasn't. So, I was always classified as a tomboy. Made things feel awkward, being expected to react in a female way when your brain isn't reacting in a female way. But it allows me a few more insights. The female connections are there. I can't deny it. The hormones create those connections in your brain, and but it was like they weren't connected correctly. Like some of them would misfire. Some are right, some aren't, and just never felt comfortable. Like I was always acting or trying to be somebody that I wasn't. Spent 13 years in all-girls school. Expected to go to college only to find a husband. I emotionally became very detached, especially as after the age of 12 and going through puberty. I just had a really hard time accepting what I was being forced to become, because I knew it was not who I was, and that I couldn't do the game any longer of putting on a face for other people and trying to be something that I wasn't. And before I transitioned, especially with the birth of my son, I'd reached a real emotional breaking point. I dealt with how I felt basically in seclusion until that night in 1977. And from that point on, my life changed. In 1977, due to a lot of marital problems, I did my usual routine of staying up late and watching the Tom Snyder Show. And in the fall of that year, he had a guest on that totally changed my life. It was a female to male, transgendered individual who had had surgery here in the States, didn't go to Europe. He had surgery here in the States and had written a book about his experience, and my life changed that day because at that point in time I realized I wasn't alone. Everything I had felt my entire life was real, and there was answers and solutions to it. Seeing this interview on Tom Snyder's show was enough for me to realize that I wasn't crazy. Other people felt the same way, and there were answers out there for how I was feeling and what I thought I could give to the world if I was allowed to be myself. My relationship with my mother was distant. She was cold. She was really only interested in herself and what image she could project to her friends, and the children were part of that image, but not in any way supportive of anything that any of her children did. Every family has their strange dynamics, but everything rotated around her. Everything had to be done her way, and if not, everybody else paid the price. My parents weren't there to be anything more than, yeah, these are our kids, and that's about the extent of it. We didn't get much in the way of emotional support in anything. Everything I asked for that I was interested in or wanted to try was, well, we'll see. And we'll see was always postponement with never an answer given, which meant was a no. And as a kid, that's just so frustrating when you're wanting to learn and explore and the things that have you excited and you're being told no. You shouldn't be interested in those things. A young lady wouldn't be doing this kind of whatever it was I was interested in. But no, there was no support. It was like I said, we were there to go to college and find a husband and be done with it and have our own family. And yeah, there was not support for much of anything. My father I was really close to. I really liked my dad because I was the tomboy. He kind of considered me his son, up until my brother was born. So I felt kind of a pull away at that point. He did things with my brother that he never did with me. Like, he read to him at night and just little things like that were different that, made me feel the change in the relationship and how it was. But we always had a close relationship. He never pulled away. He always knew how to reach me, and we always remained in contact. Growing up in the 50s, upper middle class, we were raised by a maid, and without her, I probably would not understand how to love anybody, how to care for somebody, empathy for anybody, because that wasn't coming from my family. Her name was Lucille, and without her, I would be totally lost even to this day. She taught me the real purpose of being here. Family, I told that I was transitioning at a Sunday night dinner. Everybody was there. Basically, I was told never to return, that I was no longer part of the family. I'm not sure my brothers and sisters got the full story, because, like I said, after I decided to transition, I told my parents, my mother never mentioned my name again. People would ask about me. She would just ignore the question and just pretend my name wasn't brought up. That was really hard, was to break down and tell them. But I mean, it was the only thing I could have done at that point, because at that point I knew who I was inside, who the real me was inside, and I couldn't stop that person from coming out. In 1977, Patricia Lynn Thomas, who was at that time Patricia Thomas Smith, died. She no longer existed, and Patrick McClish Thomas was born. Basically told him that I wanted out of the marriage, I wanted to go back to school, and school I wanted to go to was in Cleveland. And then as I was on hormones and changes started to become a little bit more apparent, then I finally opened up to him and told him the reason why I was going to Cleveland. The reason I mean, it wasn't just I was going there to transition, but I was going there to go to school. I was not going to be, in Columbus, where I was born and raised, where people might recognize me and, possibly misgender me, even though my name was, non-generic anyway. Yeah, it was difficult, but I used the Cleveland Clinic program as an excuse to get divorced because they did require that you weren't married in order to go through the program, which to me I find mind-boggling that they wanted to remove your entire support system, and yet that was what they did back then. They wanted to make sure that they figured if you didn't have a support system, you still wanted to go through with this, then you were dedicated to going through with this. We've always remained friends. We're still friends. I'm still friends with my ex-husband. And he's been one of the few people that has always been there to support me, even when my family has turned their back on me, which has been multiple times. He has always, if I've asked for help, has always been there. So I can't ever say anything negative against him. My son, as a 2-year-old when I transitioned, was too young to even remember me being his mother. So he only knew me, he knew I was his mother, and yet he accepted me as a man. So I mean, children are absolutely amazing, and in what they will accept and understand, and we don't give them enough credit at all. Being afraid to not be yourself when you can't be anything other than who you are. And I mean, I just don't know the best way to describe it for other people because it's very hard. It's like trying to stand in a mirror and rather than seeing who you are, who you know you're going to see, you're seeing somebody else staring back at you. And that's daily. That's every time you pass a mirror, every time you pass a pane of glass, you look over there, and before you transition, that person that you see in your head is never looking back at you. And for me, like, it created a lot of paranoia, a lot of anger, and just inability to function. I just basically lived in my head to escape. And I think a lot of us do that. School, I actually went through on a grant for displaced homemakers. So school didn't I had no idea how I was going to pay for school. I just knew I'd been accepted and enrolled, and I figured the rest of it would figure itself out. And their admissions office was able to find this unknown grant that covered my entire school tuition for 2 years, including my books. I enrolled as a female because I was still female. Ohio will not change birth certificates, so I'm still legally Patricia Lane Thomas, still legally female. They shortened my name down for me. Like I said, they could not change the records. I'm still, even on the records today, I'm listed as being female, which I was when I attended, even though I was legally living as a man. School, work, most of them have been on the plus side for me. I just financially was never taken care of. I was always paid less than everybody else. I was always kind of left behind and never able to reach my full potential, just basically because I was transgendered. A lot of employers just weren't going to allow it. I had some I left because they made it so uncomfortable for me to be there, and some I left because they were going to make it dangerous for me to be there. And others I was just outright fired because I was transgendered for no other reason. They find a reason to put on there even though it was bogus. So yeah, work career was never, it was satisfying, but financially was never anything to write home about. I've been disabled for the last 20 years. I've had issues with my eyes and with my back. And so yeah, I had to stop working 10 years ago. And now it's just a matter of finding purpose and direction again and offering myself back out to the world. I was a photographer. I was a licensed optician. I was an American Farrier Certified Farrier. A farrier is someone who works with horses, trims horses' feet, and shoes horses' feet. And I built computers, and I also worked for the phone company. I met my wife Colleen in 2005. We'd been emailing each other for a few months, talking on the phone for a few months. I had finally convinced her to come down to Columbus to see a musician that was going to be performing at a festival down there. And we'd, like I said, been emailing back and forth for about 5 months. And we had a few things in common at that point in time when we met. My son had passed away. She had had a daughter that she had miscarried, so we kind of connected on that level. And yeah, we met and we kind of were never apart after that. We got married within a few weeks, and except for when she was in the hospital having chemo, we were not apart. My wife helped me to realize things about myself that I wasn't even aware of. She reignited my faith, for one. She just helped to ground me and help me be happier with who I was, and a lot of that was due to her bringing me back, I think, to faith. I've been away from it for quite a while. I don't know really how to explain my relationship with her because she was not like other people, at least not other people that I've met. She had been abused by her husband and maybe just felt like she would be more comfortable with someone who understood women a little bit better than most men do. That is a big advantage, is that I do understand a lot of times how women think and where they're coming from. Um, so there's a little bit of insight there that makes it a little easier. I mean, I can't deny that the first third of my life I was born and raised as a woman. The wiring in my brain, I'm sure, is still there to some degree. Some of that is going to be due to hormones. That, I mean, you never really stop producing hormones, even though I've replaced them with testosterone. There's still always going to be a slight amount of estrogen in your system. That's true even of a genetic man. And I think a lot of women feel a little bit safer with transgendered men than they do with genetic men. It's just a way of, I guess, being able to understand a woman that a genetic man doesn't understand because they've never gone through those life experiences. Well, I've had mastectomy and hysterectomy. I've never had any other surgeries besides that. So there's always a dysphoria every day when you get undressed, when you bathe, of having still the wrong body. And it was just a way that she made me feel comfortable, where other people hadn't. She still accepted me as a man, even though, you know, I was never physically ever going to be a man. I don't have the money, I don't have the health, and I don't have the age. There aren't any doctors anywhere that would even consider doing surgery on me. So for me to even think about it is kind of a moot point, and I never saw surgery anyway I would have been happy with. So there's that. I'm happy with where I am. 40 years of testosterone does some amazing changes to a body. So yeah, I mean, even though it's dysphoric, it's still me, and yeah, she just allowed me to be more comfortable in my own skin. Colleen taught me to love myself, which allowed me to truly love somebody else. That is something I don't think I was capable of prior to meeting her. Unless you are happy with yourself and you can love yourself, you just can't move anywhere else. You're kind of stuck. You have to be able to be happy with yourself and love yourself to be able to be with anybody else. It's never going to be mutual if you don't. You can never grow if you don't know who you are. It's just a stifling experience. I have thought about suicide every day of my life for as far back as I can remember. It is attached to my identity. I'm trying to explain to other people who I was at just such a young age. I did try and commit suicide at the age of 3. Same time, I tried to explain to my parents that I was not a girl. The two are definitely attached to each other. The memory of that day is still vivid in my mind, and I have fought that demon daily. Thankfully, I have managed to keep it at a point where it I can still function, and I don't know if it's just a matter of age. It was a lot harder when I was younger to avoid it and to not think about it almost constantly. Now it's daily. I get up, I stretch. Here I am. This is what I'm doing today. And yeah, hi. Well, are we going to take our life today? And it's like, go away. No, today I feel good. So it's there. It's always there. I can't deny it. And when I'm upset or depressed, it is always going to rear its ugly little head. I don't believe that mental illness goes with being transgendered. I think people that are transgendered are just so much more introspective and more aware of where they are mentally, and we're just so sensitive to outside influences. It could just be somebody misgendering you out of the blue, somebody saying something idiotic that triggers an emotion, um, and it is just a battle. You've been trained from a child that you're something other than what you're saying now. And I can only say, as you taught me as a child to act and put on a face, and as an adult, you have been able to see the real me. When you're transitioning, you're kind of in a half truth and half lie because you're kind of half here and half there. Everybody's truth is different. And I've been male as my entire life, but that was not a truth until a third of my life had passed. I could not make it a truth, a physical truth. Even though it was a truth in my head, I could not physically make it a truth until later. So you're always kind of, which way are you on? And, you know, are you male? Are you female? And every day is going to be slightly different. I know I have days where I'm more masculine, some days where I'm more feminine. Depends on who I'm with, uh, what I've been exposed to during the day, and just basically how I'm feeling. But I'm always male. I'm always a man. But yeah, I'm sorry. I was raised, 20 years as a female. Those years are still there. Can't deny them. So yeah, they do come through occasionally. My biggest goal, everybody asks their, at school when they're kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? My only answer was, I want to be a man. Everybody else would go, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a neurosurgeon, whatever. It's like I couldn't comprehend that. It's because for me, my journey at that age was the only thing that mattered to me. I couldn't have cared less. I didn't understand work. I didn't understand jobs. For me, it was, I want to be a man when I grow up. That's it. That was me at the age of 3. That was me at the age of 16. And that is still me today at the age of 66. If anybody is considering or uncertain as to whether they feel male, female, gay, find somebody to talk to. You need somebody you can trust, that you can open up to, that you can tell the truth to, that you can be yourself and they're not going to judge you. That may be a family member, it may be a friend, it might be a teacher or a priest or a minister, or it could be a therapist, but you need to find somebody to help you find yourself. When you found yourself, then you know where your journey is going to take you. Then you can start moving forward and not backwards or in the same circle you've been going in for however many years you've been going in and not knowing why. Just find somebody.